But
Um,
I forgot what I was saying though before we
well,
got
well,
interrupted.
oh,
Before we interrupted ourselves,
right, before we interrupted ourselves.
well,
Well,
I forgot what we were saying.
well, we were
I know
talking
it had to do with the relationship stuff
relationship.
though.
Well, what I was going to say is what we were talking about is if you like our society, what people's priorities are within dating, right? And I think part of the problem as a society as a whole, we're not respecting. This goes into a lot of stuff. We're not respecting character. We're not respecting emotional availability. You know, we're not valuing the things that should be valued in a person, right? And then also, because we don't do that for friendships. So let's just say this: relationships of any level are why this society is falling apart. Because I think, and this is gonna sound crazy, D, tell me about it, but I feel like we're almost raising narcissists. You know,
Oh,
because
for sure, for sure.
I mean, social media, all this stuff about me, relationship wise, like for women on Instagram, right? So say they got a nice dude, he's cool, but then they're like, because their inboxes are flooded by guys all the time. So now they have an unbalanced view
Yeah,
of what the dating pool is, right? Again, they know nothing of
for
it,
real.
nothing of it, right? And their pictures are getting sweated, so they're like, I don't have to put up with nothing, right? And the same thing with the dude, right? Now, from the guy's perspective, you're looking at that happen to all these women, and you're like, I don't know, how would I ever be part of this? Where do I begin? Because this girl's getting flooded by 3,000 likes on her picture. So the DMs must, and it's not even if she will read your DM, it's how can she get to it, right?
I
So,
think it's just, you know what
you
though?
know,
I think it's just magnified. Like if you look at the animal kingdom, you see like the males always have to compete
right,
to grab the female's attention so that he can do what he has to do.
right, right.
So you know to get her attention and to make her a mate. So I think now it's just that much more with social media and the internet altogether. Cat's gotta, you know, she's getting flooded with mad messages with dudes trying to get with her, and she has the pick of the litter. So I don't know if it's, you know, when you say that, that's kind of what triggered this. Like, I'm not sure if it's anything that we've been doing differently over the past 1,000 years. I think now it's just magnified, but I think the bigger problem is you have to compete against all of these potentials that really are not going to amount to anything later on down the line. And by the time they figure it out, now they become these bitter women. You know, they're going to get upset because they're all bitter, talking about, oh, there's no good dudes out here for me to date. But they already made their mistake because they chose the, you know what
right.
I'm saying? They chose the wrong cats to begin with, and part of that is because of their upbringing.
Well, and right, and so when you brought up something that you said, in the animal kingdom, you fight for the mate, but that happens because of the necessary things it has to have as a mate. So even though they're
Right,
fighting, right? Why I'm saying that is because it's different that way. Because even though you're competing, the female is watching for certain attributes that will come out of that male winning, right? That male may be the most protective, strongest, he won the battle. But even in that, he may not be good with, like when sometimes you see in the animal kingdom, they have kids, and that dude ends up killing one of the cubs, right? Or something like that.
right,
Whereas
right.
there was another dude who was better with the cubs or whatever, but he was not the fighter, he was not this. So that dude didn't get the top female. But why I'm saying these things is the problem, like you just said, raised and looked at, and it's on both sides, because men are now looking at, rather than working on yourself as your character and individual, you think, I got to make six figures, right?
Well, even before that, and let me know if you agree with me, it was the whole bad boy image. Now it's been going on,
Right.
but they always thought that the dudes that were like aggressive and bad and had a criminal record was that guy. And I believe it's because and this was before social media, you had these movies portraying
Well,
all these
yeah,
bad guys,
because
all
corporate
these
got away.
gangsters.
Right. You're right.
Right.
And everybody fell in love with the bad dude. Menace Society, everybody loved O-Dog, right? When you saw Juice, everybody was loving Tupac. Everybody, and of course, corporate got a hold of hip hop, and that's what they promoted. You know, it's funny because what was the other one with Janet Jackson, Guy Torry, and Tupac?
Poetic Justice.
Poetic Justice. No longer was that. You know, that became passe because Poetic Justice, Jason's Lyric. Remember, we had all these positive films. The dudes weren't gangsters, or you know, it's funny. There was a gangster brother, and then the other dude trying to do right, and then it was the constant fight and this and that. But it was the dudes doing right that the women were chasing, right? But then the streets would come and pull them away. But what I'm trying to say this is, it was a different view of things, and then somehow it shifted, and it became gangster, this and that, and then they said women love that, and they got taught to love that, right? But even as guys now, here's the thing. See, society is divided into segments, and why I say that is because there are, like when I was in college, right? And my boy BJ, I remember we were sitting around talking college, and we were like, you know, and I'm like, there must be women somewhere having this exact situation, this exact conversation. But what I found is some of those, like, there's women I said, like, wow, how do I get on her radar, right? Where do I meet that woman? And it didn't happen for me until I was in California, right? And that was because I was, you know, into my own and whatever. But even in that, those women aren't necessarily looking for a guy most of the time. You see what I'm saying? The women, because they're doing like we're doing, like when I say, you've got to be about something. So when they're about something, they're not thinking about any of that. Once those women, usually if they have a guy, the guy will, it's got to be someone who's going to pursue them. And most time they're not looking to date 5 and 7 people. So if a guy pursues them and he gets them at that right time, she's married. She's going to get married.
Right.
So the chances of finding that woman outside of, let's be honest, outside of college age, graduate school age and stuff like that is hard. And I'm saying that because I remember a woman I met out in LA, wonderful woman, she was Arabic. You remember, I don't know if you remember her.
Right, yeah.
She was getting her doctorate. But what I'm saying is her focus was her doctorate, not dating. I met her through a friend at an art gallery, right? Which also, here's another thing, similar interest, right? So we bonded, we built intellectually, right? Now, my point is, she wasn't interested, she was dating, she was not dating. She was working on her doctorate, she was doing that. I happened to connect, we were feeling whatever, and she was like, what's up, you know? But, why I'm saying that, so for women, it's different, meaning that their minds are not there. So it would have to be someone who notices, you're in the game, right? But most of the time, again, those women, and I think that's the difference in men and women, right? Because even if we're going, you know, the same thing. I was pursuing my career, this and that. I wasn't necessarily dating, but somehow it still crossed my path all the time, right? Women, that doesn't happen for them. And I think that's true. That's sometimes they say where men and women's minds don't work together, and then marriages break down. I'll tell you why. Because they say men get married, right? And you know, hey, they're working, they're doing this. Women get married. Now, let's say the kids are happening, right? So why I'm saying that is this: the women now are preoccupied with running the house and the kids, and maybe even social whatever, right? But they no longer are thinking about the relationship in terms of sexual, emotional, whatever. And then men sometimes feel like, well, damn, here I am, right? And it's like, I'm working all the time. You're no longer thinking about, or every time I want to have sex, you're like, oh, I'm tired, or I'm not thinking about that, or the kids, I got to get up and take the kids, or the kids. And why I'm saying that's an age-old argument. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is women's minds can get compartmentalized, and they no longer are thinking about that. And as a man, you'd be like, damn, I feel like an ATM. Like they say, men get jealous of the kids, but how that happens, it's not about being jealous. It's like, yo, do you even think about me sometimes? Well,
this is what I've learned throughout situations like that is the woman a lot of times will put the children first. And I ain't gonna lie, way back when I thought, all right, that sounds like the right thing to do. You put all your energy into the kids because you want to raise them to the best ability that you can, right? Even above your standards, obviously. You want your kids to be better than you, so you put all your energy into them. What happens though is marriage suffers because of that.
Well, yeah, because they're not looking at that relationship anymore. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just saying they're not building.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, but am I hearing that correctly? They are no longer looking
Right. They're not.
relationship.
They're not. And what I've learned is it has to be, or I should say, it should be the opposite.
Right.
And I know mad people will disagree. Like I've spoken to people about this, and like, oh, I don't know. But most that I've spoken to have agreed. Like, if you put the relationship first, and keep in mind, we all know, like, children, especially when they're young, they absorb everything. Like, they see everything, they hear it, and they absorb it. So if your energy is towards the relationship, towards your spouse,
Yep.
and that is on a good level, where the kids look at that and they say, wow, mommy and daddy's always happy, for the most part anyways. They always work together and they seem to get along good. That has a trickle down effect to the children.
Right.
The children are going to feed off of that positive energy, and with that, they grow up in a better environment, just based off of just the energy alone. Forget everything else. You can have a shack of a house,
Right.
but just have the essentials. But if that energy is right, the kids are going to feed off of that.
Right.
And as a whole, the whole household grows and benefits from that as well. And the way things are right now, I think it's the opposite of that.
Well,
Because they're putting other things before that, and it's not helping out the whole family. It's just, oh well, we got to put the kids first, and we got to put the money first, and we got to do that. Of course, you have to put certain things in place to maintain and even thrive. But when you start putting all the wrong things in its place, then obviously it's going to fall apart. At least that's how I've seen it.
yeah.
And I've witnessed it as well. So.
Well, this is what I mean when I say that people need to build the relationship first, right? That meaning what you said, you've got to feed that, because one, this is how we learn, right? This is how we learn to be in a relationship, right? By what we see, what we observe, right? But I think our society is making it harder too, because like you just said, back in the day, you didn't have to have a lot of money, and you still could have a great relationship with certain things. But three things are happening. What's the first one? Economics. It's rough you can't buy a house for $120,000 anymore. You can't sustain that on that one job and this and that, right? Second, when that happens now, you need to have a 2-income home, which means both parents are not home. Not to mention, now you've got children. And so economically it becomes another level, because let's say so now you've got to add a daycare or this and that, because, so those three things contribute to what happens, because now that relationship is in jeopardy anyway, because financial stress is real. Let's forget about even before, like, just the other thing, the emotional parts of the relationship, but now the financial stress of, we both got to work, we got to find time within that for us to be cool. Then we've got children, so now we got to find time within that for the children. And then what happens too is, I know, 4 friends of mine that have 3 kids, right? They say that everything was good at 2 kids, right? When you had 3, it hit the threshold financially, it was real. Okay? Now, what's the other side of that, right? Why I'm saying that is, here's what also happens to that. It was no longer that they could just be like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and, after work, I'm gonna go grab, a drink with the boys or get some dinner or whatever, right? No, that's not happening anymore. And you know why? Because the wife says, yo, you've been at work, or whoever's home, you've been at work all day. I've been home with these 3 kids. I need a break, right? So now, all they care but understandable, but at the same time, that's not about, hey, come home, let's have some time and do. No, that's about.
But I think that's part of society too, right? Society is dictating a lot of times to other people that you need those breaks. Again, back in the days, you didn't see that. Even before our time, you didn't see that. The wife would stay home and take care of the kids and cook dinner and all these things, and that kept the family together, because the man, and of course, different times, different responsibilities in a sense. Where the man he was the head of the household, and they knew their roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
The woman knew that, okay, I have to be here to take care of the family. My husband's going to go out there and bring in the money. So there was roles that they knew that they had.
Right.
But those roles, of course, got reversed, sort of.
Well,
here we are.
And
Here we are fighting for.
Can't afford to have that role anymore. Can't afford that.
Well, not only that, it's, they can't afford it, but a little bit off the topic, but I was just listening to this podcast, and it was somebody that's pretty wealthy. I can't remember the guy's name. And he's basically saying, the question was asked, can a marriage survive off of infidelity? And he was like, of course it can. But what it can't survive is a financial issue. Because financially, once that support is gone in terms of being able to help a family eat, clothe itself, and have shelter, that becomes a problem.
Of course. Absolutely. That is a severe strain. Listen, most marriages, they say one of the major problems that falls away from those things is that financial stress, right? That is real.
Mm-hmm.
That financial stress is extremely real. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's not, because like you said, now, like we were just saying, stay home. Nobody can stay home. You can't stay home anymore. Unless, some people can, but the average percentage of Americans that can't. You can't. That's why 1%. Only 1% of people are making a certain amount of money. And we don't make enough. No, you can't. Unless we live in the Midwest. But even then, living in the Midwest, they pay you according to the Midwest, right?
Right.
But now, here's the thing, too. And you're living, now it's again, society's struggle, right? If you're living in the Midwest, right? You're out there. What happens to most of the kids in the Midwest? Nobody want to live like that. They're on Instagram watching what's going down, and they're like, damn, the way that I gotta live is I gotta get out there and I gotta come up. I gotta make this dough. I gotta make the flash life. I gotta live on this. Hey, let me. I'm sure I'm gonna have to do this. I got a 1 o'clock meeting, and I'm dropping off.
Yeah, do your thing, bro. We'll catch up when you're done. Just hit me back.
All right, cool. Peace.
All right, bro.
Let's fly away, just you and me. I need a little break from the city.